Oh, and I have a chat. Which week is finals week? Okay. Finals week. Let's go ahead and look at that in the modules. Okay, so if we scroll down, actually, one thing you can do is just minimize every week. So there's week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Finals week is week 16 and it ends on December 11th. So, and actually the final exam, you'll have to submit that by Friday that week. So if you have any issues working during the week, you'll have to submit that early. You know, sometimes you just can't do work during the week. And you want to do it on the weekends. You might want to do that final on the weekend before the 11th. Okay, and any other questions, let me know. And let me see, hold on. Okay, and also remember too that there's 3 final exams. There's a final exam with questions. Then there is a final exam where you'll be doing a CentOS activity. And then a final exam where you'll be doing a Windows activity. So, so yeah, basically 3 finals there. Any questions about that? 3 finals, and you'll have a week to do it. So like week 14, this will be available all week, so you can, you know, work on it as much as you can, and then just be sure to submit it by the 29th. The same thing with the CentOS activity. It'll be due on the 6th, but you have the whole week to do it. And then the same thing with the final exam. Now there will be a time limit. You can do it anytime during that week, but there will be a time limit. So yeah, just no time limits on these as long as you submit it by the due date. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and look at week 10. So we'll be looking at a bunch of stuff, how to search, how to create files, how to do cut and paste. And actually a lot of these things we actually covered before, but this is, you know, you haven't actually seen the ISE for PowerShell, which is where you can actually create files. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let me make my screen a little bit bigger. Okay, so, I'm sorry, trying to get organized here. All right, so text editors, and I will actually go ahead and open that up right now. Okay, so I am actually not going to be using my own system. I am going to be using the basically the cloud virtual system that we have at SAC. So that way, and the reason why I'm using it is because there's a script there that has the files that I need, or that you need, or we all need for the activities in the chapter. And I'll show you that later. But you can do these activities still on your own system, but it won't have those files, and you're just going to have to create files. But the assignment, I'll have you create something so you won't need anything, but just make sure that you do have the PowerShell on your computer, and check early too. Well, I'm pretty sure you do have it, but just verify. Okay, so let's do, okay, so text editors, I mentioned the ISE, which is the integrated scripting environment. Now, previously we were looking at PowerShell, and if I go into here and click on start, if I were to type power, notice how we've been looking at Windows PowerShell previously, but there's actually also a PowerShell ISE. Now let me go ahead and show you. This is the PowerShell that we've been using. Notice how it's a command line interface, really nothing to look at, to tell you the truth. You got the title bar with the minimize, maximize, and close. And if you right click the title bar, you get a few more options like editing and properties like changing colors that we looked at last time. Well, if you go into, type in POW, I just do POW, and do Windows PowerShell ISE, notice that we actually have something else that kind of looks similar, but notice how you have commands over on the right-hand side, which we'll be covering later on in a future chapter. And then we have some menus up on top. So it's a little bit more than what we have here. And we'll be creating files and doing stuff in PowerShell today. Alrighty. Okay, so that's the PowerShell ISE. So be sure that you know the difference between the two. You will have to be opening, for the assignment, you'll have to open the PowerShell ISE and maneuver around that. Okay, so going back to the top here, text editors, basically, you just type in text. So instead of using your Word program or WordPad or whatever, text files, you just do text. So if I were to do start and then Notepad, well, that's one that I've already been using, and it's just where you just type in text. There's not very much you can do with it. You can type in text, you can do spaces, tabs, enter, and that's really about it. Can't add graphics or anything like that. You can, find, replace, you can change the font of the word wrap, but the font will be of the entire thing. So it's not like you can have this font here and that font there, or colors or anything like that. So it's pretty basic, but it's something that you can use just to write quick notes, and it won't take a lot of space on your computer. And that's what I've used. I used to do quite a bit, but then I kind of moved over to using Word for notes like that, because sometimes I just kind of forget to save. And when you close Notepad, there's no going back. Or let's say your computer shuts down, the battery, if you're using a laptop, the battery dies and you didn't save this, well, your stuff is gone. But in Word, it actually auto saves. And even though you haven't saved it as a file number or whatever, it still saves whatever you have, or at least it's more likely to save what you have. So I've just been using Word recently. Okay, and just for notes and stuff like that. And of course, other things. Okay, but the advantage of Notepad is the fact that you can't have extra stuff. So like if I were to copy this, all it would really paste is just the text. So if I go into here and then paste, oh, that's right, I'm using the virtual thing, I can't do that. Okay, I'm gonna have to use my own system. Let me go ahead and switch sharing. Okay, much better. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so if I'm using Notepad and I'm just copying anything, I already copied it and I paste, noticed how, there was a link, but there isn't a link anymore because it just copies the text. If I were to copy an image, it's just not going to do it. There's no way I can paste that because you can't have images here. So that's kind of the advantage. If you just want clean text, that's what you can use Notepad for. You can even use it to clean off text so you don't have the extra formatting, like the link. Because actually, if you were to use Microsoft Word, let me open up another window. If you were to use Microsoft Word, you pasted, you have options. You can paste, oops, well, of course you can paste the image, but if you copy text, and I just did Control C so I don't have to do right click and copy. If you paste text, if you just do Control V, it actually copies everything. So now you have a bullet, you have the links, and you have the bold and all that stuff. And just so you know, just a little throw in there, there's different options on pasting. And right here, you could even if you use Control V to paste, you can just choose text by clicking on this here, or I could have just done right click and then this one for keep text only. So that still cleans off your text too. So that is helpful, and Word didn't previously have that option. It's been a while that they did, but a while back they didn't have that. So Notepad was the way to go. All right. Okay, so back to the topic. Okay, so that was a bit about Notepad and different things. Another way to use a text editor would be if you're doing programming classes. And I believe I mentioned it to you. I don't even know if I have it here. Oh, I do. Notepad++. This is basically a text editor program for different things. And this is something actually that we have used in this class. And now you notice commands that we've actually used before: md, cd, echo, make directory, change directory, and then displaying something on the screen. And we'll be creating one of these in the future. But this is Notepad++, and you can, just like with Notepad, you can create one of these in Notepad, but just save it as, you know, the PS or the CMD, because this is a command prompt file. But notice how you don't have any colors here, but you do have it in Notepad++. That's the benefit of downloading a program like this, because it helps you out. Notice how it has CD, MD, echo, all the commands are blue. Everything in like variables, like budget, or well, actually that's a file name, but variables, here we go, variables with the percent signs, they're all in orange. Text would be in black. So it really helps out, because if you have any errors, then you can kind of notice, like, let's say I was missing a quote here, you know, it might or might not tell you. So it just depends on which program you're using. So if you were to use, like, let's say you wanted a new file, so you just do File New, and then you type in what you want. And I know previously I created an HTML file, and that's your basic codes for an HTML file. Just File and then Save As, and then you'll typically have Save As type. And you know, you have all these different options here, and Notepad gives you those options. I'm sorry, Notepad++, because it is a better version of Notepad. So if I wanted a HTML file or a web page, you would check hypertext markup language, and it's just called New. I'll put it in Documents and Save, and now I have an HTML file. And notice how now that I've told it that it's an HTML file, now it gives me colors, because now it knows that, you know, what should be a different color, because what are the commands. So that's another command. So it's really helpful. Notice how it even highlights things, because when you're doing commands, you need to have an open and a close. When it comes to HTML, open and close. So if you didn't have the close, you know, it'll be, you know, it's not highlighting. Why isn't it highlighting? Well, it's because you need that close command. So having just programs like this really help out. I'm actually using this in my HTML class right now, and we're even putting JavaScript in here, and it's still working just fine. So it doesn't need to be that special. You know, there's a lot of different text editors and IDEs or integrated development environments that you can use to edit programming files. So, and in syntax checking is the way it changes colors, and it'll even give you hints sometimes. So when you're doing, you might, oh, I think it even had that. See how it's giving you an option. So I typed in SCR. So this is something that these are options that somebody might need. And let's say I didn't know what it was, but I knew it started with SCR, and I'm like, oh, okay, yes, it's script. So then you just do that, or I just double clicked, or you can just do the tab key. I believe that we discussed that last time as well. If you want to finish a command in DOS, instead of typing the entire file name, well, not in DOS, I'm sorry. Well, that's what we used to call it, the command line interface DOS. So if I do dir, and if I wanted to change directory, and there are no directories here because it doesn't say, oh yeah, it is directory pictures. So if I do CD and then pick and do a tab, and now it tells me pictures. So now I'm in the pictures. So it actually finished the command that I wanted to type in. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so here's an article with the 5 best text editors. So I recommend that you read that. And what's really cool is that, well, the first one is Vim, which is what we're using in Linux. So that's cool. Atom is really good for Macs. VS Code, never used that one. Notepad++, that's the one I've been using with my HTML class. Sublime, so yeah, read them, check them out. It's good stuff. Okay, so in this course, we are talking about 3 different text editors, the PowerShell integrated scripting environment. Remember, there's a difference. You're going to be using the ISE to create a file for your assignment. And here's just a little bit of information about PowerShell. You use it with Windows 10. It's object-oriented, so you can actually do quite a bit of stuff. You can create, you know, just like programming languages. And it says PowerShell is a language similar to Perl. And you can create classes, you know, if-then statements, while loops, lots of stuff with this. So really cool stuff. I don't even think we'll go that far into it with this class because it's not a programming class. But we'll see a little bit of it. Okay, it is designed to automate system tasks such as batch processing. So previously I showed you, maybe it was here. I did show you, here it is. This is basically a script or a batch file, 2 different ways of saying it really. And it really just depends on what system you're using. But basically what it is it's a file that'll complete different commands all at once. So just like an assignment previously, we had where you wanted to create a bunch of folders and then folders within folders. Well, you could have just created a batch file so that it makes a directory, then goes into that directory, and then makes science in that directory. So, and then, you know, creates documents within them, makes it, changes directory, makes a document, and then gets out of it. So, and this is really good because if you wanted to do things, if you wanted to do something fast, and, you know, this is easier to edit, let's say, well, just like this command here, instead of typing it or even doing the up arrow when you're doing the command line interface, you could just copy that command and then paste it here and then paste it here, so you don't have to type the whole thing over again. And then of course it's easier to just change something about that command, you know, real quick. You know, you just plan ahead and just get everything done just by running this quick batch file. And I have a question. Is this free and open source? Yes. The Notepad++ is free. You can just go to Notepad++ and just download it. Yeah, definitely. And the Vim Editor actually comes with Linux, so that's free too. Open source. Just like, okay, good. Yeah, I love it. I use Notepad a lot. And it's so simple too. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that you could do, but you know, just simple, straightforward. Notepad is great. Alrighty, and I just want to keep this active, so I don't need to log in. Okay, so that was PowerShell, and we'll be looking at that today. Here's some more information. And here's Gedit and Vim. Both of these are they come with Linux, or was Linux and CentOS, which is what we're using now. It's the default editor of the GNOME desktop environment, which we're using with CentOS. It's a general purpose text editor. It includes tools for editing source, just like what I was mentioning up there, markup languages like HTML. More information there. Vim, we've mentioned that before too, but it's very much like the other two editors. It is a clone of the VI text editor from Unix, VI improved Vim, and it's quite a bit more powerful, but complicated compared to the other two. And here are some videos, not done by me, but here are some videos you can watch to get a bit more familiar with them, with each one of them. All right, so 9-2, we are going to take our break in about 15 minutes. Okay, so 9-2, working with files. So text editors. Okay, so one thing about text editors I mentioned earlier, like when we look at Notepad here, you know, you can type anything and you can do your tabs and you can do your enters, but that's about it. You can't really do much more. And what I wanted to do was show you the Show Codes button in Microsoft Word. And I think that's really kind of cool because you can see what's hidden in there. Because there are certain things in the background that are there, but you just don't see them, and they're there for certain reasons. So let's say you wanted a page break. Basically, wherever your cursor is, you'll, if you want the next page to start here, instead of pressing enter to make it go to the next page, and then sometimes, you know, if you add more text here, well, then this one moves down. It's just kind of a mess. But if you add a page break, it actually adds the page. And actually, I'm in a different view. Let me change the view. Oh no, it's print layout. There we go. Yeah, I just had the end of the page hiding. So now where I did page break, it did that page. So no matter what I add up here, it doesn't make the page go down. Oops. I did Control Enter and that's page break. Okay, so if I do, notice if, you know, this is still on the top of the page. So no matter what I add here, it won't move this down until the text goes down. But what I'm trying to point out is the fact that this is a second page. Now, how does it know that this shouldn't be moving down as if you were pressing enter? Well, if you do the show codes button, which is on the very top middle of Microsoft Word, you can see the codes that represent different things that are invisible to us typically. You have this paragraph looking sign where you pressed enter. You have these dots in the middle that represent spaces. Here's that page break. So if you show this, you can see what's really there. And of course, this is typical for people, but typical for users. But if you're just having like an issue, you know, your text just isn't looking right, you just click the show codes, you'll see the codes in the background. And I find that helpful. I use it quite a bit. And if you use it and you're showing somebody, sometimes they kind of freak out. What did you do to my document? And you're just really showing the codes. But anyway, so that's really helpful. And that's really what it means that when it says a text file just contains ASCII Unicode encoded text. So you're really only seeing the tabs and the end of line characters and just text really. And show codes in Microsoft Word shows you what's really hidden. Okay. And this paragraph just mentions how it's hard, like let's say you create something that's really common with, you know, when, like if you had a Mac computer and you created a document using their word processing program and then submitted it, and I don't have the Mac word processing program, well, I can't read it. And that's the issue when you're switching back and forth. So that's why a lot of times you might have your instructors say, okay, it can only be Word, but just know that if you have a Mac and you're using their, I don't even remember what it's called, using their word processing program, you can just do file save as, and you can save it as a Word document. So not a lot of people know that, but it's really good and helpful. Okay, so PowerShell, just like I showed you earlier when it came to like Notepad++, if you just do file new, file open, all of those options are available, just like you would in Windows. So there's open, new, save. You can have multiple files with tabs, just like Notepad. Shortcut keys we mentioned before, like Control S is to save, Control V to paste, Control C to copy. So those are really helpful, and I always use them. So I think it makes your life so much easier when you use the keyboard instead of reaching for your mouse all the time. I think because when you leave your mouse somewhere and then you come back and you need to use it, you need to shake it to see, well, where's my mouse pointer, and then move it. But so many times you could just use the keyboard to do things. Like if you did the down arrow, I'm scrolling without grabbing my mouse. So that's really helpful. And you can do, you know, of course, the Windows button on your keyboard. You can do, what is it? Control Alt. Oh, well, just other things. I forgot what it was. Oh, I think it was just File. Yeah, so here, File, you can just do Alt, and notice how you get all these options here. So you can actually navigate through Word just by using keyboard shortcuts as well. And actually, sometimes that really helps too. Let's say something goes bad with your mouse. Well, you can figure out how to do things with your keyboard, even though you don't have the mouse. And actually, a good example would be if you do Alt F4, and don't do it now because you'll probably close your Zoom, it actually closes a window. So you can actually close many different windows on your PC at once. So I just did Alt F4, it basically requested that I close this window, but I haven't saved it. So I can either use the arrows to go left and right, or see how that N on the don't is underlined? That means that I could just press the N and I won't save it. Pretty cool stuff. Oh, and actually, I'm holding down Alt and then I'm pressing Tab to switch through all the different documents that I have open. So if see that Notepad is highlighted, if I stop there and let go of Alt, you see that Notepad is open. If you do Alt F4 again, well, I want to close Notepad. No, or let's say yes, I do want to save. So I'm going to do the S, and then it gives me the save as, and then I could just type whatever I want and then hit save. And then you can tab through the different options too. So it's really good to know your different keyboard options, because it really helps and it saves you a lot of time. And I'm all about saving time. All right, so that was Windows PowerShell, and that's PowerShell ISE, remember. Then we have Gedit, basically the same exact thing. You open files, you save files, you can highlight tabs, or you can highlight stuff when you're typing, or I'm sorry, it will highlight different commands, just like this Notepad will. Then we have your Vim Editor, which is just like I mentioned earlier, it's a bit more challenging, but it's more powerful. You can go, you have to remember that you have the insert mode and then command mode, which is these two right here. So you have to press insert to be able to type data, and then press escape to be able to save and to navigate and do stuff. But I'll show you that next time on Thursday. But one thing that's very important though is that things in Linux, like CentOS, is case sensitive. So when you type in capital V, capital I, it's not the same as lowercase v, lowercase I, two completely different things. Windows, not so case sensitive, so you can do user 01 and capital U in user 01 is the same thing. So just be sure that you pay attention to that. And the activities in the book will have, those are some of the errors in the book, is that it wasn't capital when it should be capital, or the other way around. Okay, so working with lines of text. So this is where I was mentioning about command keys. And let me just keep this active real quick because I don't want to log in. And remember, I showed keyboard last time. I showed a keyboard, and no, we don't want to look at a Mac one. Yeah, don't want to look at the Mac one. Okay, so here's the control key on the bottom left-hand corner. Also, I want to point out that there is a control key on the bottom right as well, next to the arrow keys. So, and also here's the escape key on the very top. I also want to mention the insert key. And of course, you know, keyboards are different. This particular keyboard, it's not as big as other ones. There's the buttons are more compact. But yeah, if you press the insert key, and I tried to show you this before, but it didn't work, but it should be able to work with this cloud virtualized operating system. Okay, so when I point out control something, so when it says control and then V, or control X, control C, you hold down control and then you tap X if you want to cut. Hold on control and tap C to copy. Hold on control and tap V to paste. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Very important that you, I think it's very important that you learn these shortcut keys because it really saves you some time. Also want to point out, now one thing about highlighting, notice how we're on a web page here, so there's no cursor. There's no blinking item like you would here in Word. Now I just did, it was highlighted and I just did the right key, the right arrow just to unhighlight. But also remember that Shift allows you to highlight something. So wherever that cursor was, let's say it's at the end, and you drag with the arrows, you can actually highlight something. You can hit home to go to the beginning of the line. You can hit end. If I hit home and then I start highlighting with the arrow keys, you're highlighting there. So I think that's pretty helpful too. It's helpful sometimes because notice how Word, well, usually Word, when you start highlighting, even if you're in the middle of the word, it'll still do the entire word. But if you are using something like a text document, it doesn't do that. But let's say you wanted to continue a highlight because you forgot part of it, you can continue highlighting like this. But depending on where you ended, so you can extend this highlight, but you can't extend it at the beginning because I started highlighting at the beginning. So if the beginning was here, well, now I can move the very first character. So it just takes a bit of getting used to though. And that's just something I threw in, it's not in here. Okay, so the same thing for Gedit and Vim. Let me see, I pretty much covered it. When you copy, it goes into a clipboard. It says in PowerShell, it goes into a buffer, but they're pretty much the same thing. It's a place in RAM that remembers what you copied. So if I highlight that and copy, when now it's in a place in the memory on your computer, waiting for you to hit paste. So anytime you hit paste, it will do it. In an hour, if I don't copy anything and I hit paste, it will still have that saved in the memory. Okay. Yeah, let me go ahead and stop here. I'll continue with Vim when we get back from break. We will be on break until 11 a.m. Hello, everyone. We are back. Let me go ahead and show my entire screen. I don't think it's showing the entire screen. There we go. Okay, so well, first of all, oh, I don't need to log in. I'll make sure that we're active still. Okay, so the last time we were talking about Vim. Okay, well, it's much more powerful than Powershell and Gedit. And I know that we've worked with it a little bit, kind of, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, that you have to, if you wanted to type text, you need to press the I. Well, I didn't mention this, but you need to press the I to edit something in Vim. And then when you're done typing whatever you want to type, you press the escape key and then type in a :WQ to get out. And so it's very different. It's still a text editor because you can still add and edit text and create files and all that, but it's very different. So, but we will look at that more. But you can still do cursor keys up, left, right, and all that stuff, but very different. We'll look at that in the next class. Okay, so the next part is searching for text strings. And you may have already done a lot of what we're going to do today, but there may be some new stuff. So, but basically we're going to be using the find option in PowerShell ISE to find words or certain string of words. Gedit has the same thing, searching forwards and backwards, just like PowerShell ISE. And then Vim, it can also search text as well. Stays highlighted until you specifically turn it off, and then you can actually search for different items. Like you can search for a word, and then you can search, or let's say you're looking for, you want to find all the instances where it says new. So you can search for new, but then let's say you also want to see every time that it says old. So you can have everything that's every time the word new is in a document and every time the word old is in a document. And that's not typically what we do in, let's say, Microsoft Word. So let me just create a new document here. So let's say, oh, okay, remember I copied that earlier? It's still there, but I want a bunch of text. So I highlighted, copy, and I'm pasting. So when we do a find in Word, we can just do Control F to find, and then I'm going to type in the word you. So now it finds the you everywhere. Okay, and that's what most text editors do. But Vim, you can have two different searches. So you can find you and something else like new and ode, and all the news and all of the odes will be highlighted at once. But anyway, we'll look at that next time. So some differences, but at least you can still search. And the whole reason for searching is, well, for example, let's say that something is misspelled. Well, if you know it's misspelled and you know the spelling of it, or the misspelling of it and the correct spelling of it, you can search for just the misspellings. And maybe you want both the misspellings and the regular spellings. So you want to search. But another thing that's wonderful is replacing strings. So instead of just finding something, you can replace it with something else. And the example that I'm going to use later on is the word gray. Some people type in GRAY, and then some people type in GREY. So let's say that somebody typed in the wrong spelling that you wanted, so you can just search and replace. And actually, if you do Control H, that is the, and then if I just do escape, I can close that. So that's just another example of using your keyboard. But you could use the find in the, should be in the home. Oh, there it is. Under editing, here's find and replace. So you could find and then replace. And these things are quite wonderful because if you have cupboard instead of course, typing it out, you could just copy and paste. But why copy and paste every time when you could just do a search for every time it says you? And let me do the replace. So every time it says you, I want to replace it to me. You can find it, or you can replace it, or you can just replace all. There's 5 times that it said you in there, and it just replaced it. And yes, I want to continue to the beginning. If there's any more, there's a total of 6. So now every time that it had you, it says me instead. And I use that quite a bit. And since we're on the topic, one thing that I think is really cool about Microsoft Word that not a lot of other programs have, like Notepad, is the special characters. You can actually search for anytime somebody pressed enter. That is the code for enter. Different than the show codes from earlier. But let's say every time I pressed enter, I really wanted to have the word what. And if I do replace all, continue from the beginning because I started in the middle, you'll see that every time there was an enter, it replaced it with what. So that's actually pretty cool. You can replace not only words, but also the hidden characters that are in Microsoft Word or any other text. What about those hidden spaces? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do replace special. And, you know, there's just so many different things. So we're going to let me just get rid of that. And we're going to do special. And let's do, oh, well, actually, if it's space, you don't even need to do special character. You can just do a space. I just typed a space here and then replace it with what? 22. 2222. And to replace all, there was 87 spaces in there. So there, you can just replace spaces. So yeah, so many different things. And you know, you could just kind of go into the special and just find so many different things. Character, any letter, any digit, a tab, just like the paragraph mark, you could even replace with formats. So I don't typically use that, but I do use searching for paragraphs and tabs quite a bit because sometimes when you copy and paste something, there's maybe too many paragraphs. So let's say there was too many paragraphs. So I'll do a paragraph, and then just replace it with just one paragraph mark. So if the document had two enters and I just wanted one like that, it would replace it. So let's do the replace. So we're searching for 2 paragraph marks and replacing it with a paragraph mark, replace all. So now it only did one enter, one enter, one enter. So yeah, that's really cool. I use it quite a bit and it really helps. Especially, you know, you don't want to be like going through files and, okay, these 2's should be 3 2's. These 2's should be the redos. That would just take forever. So doing the replace and even characters really does help. Okay, so that was pretty much replace. PowerShell, you can do that. But of course, it's not as advanced as Word would be, like searching for paragraph marks and tabs. But you can do replaces with words and including spaces. Replace or replace all, which is what we did. You just want to replace one, or you can just, and actually typically when I do a replace, I'll find the first one and I'll replace it just to confirm that it's replacing what I want. And then I know that it's working, so then I'll do the replace all. And also one thing too, is that let's say it didn't work, it didn't do what you wanted to do. Remember, there's always the undo. Just keep on doing undo until you get it back to the way you want it. That's my favorite button, undo. Okay, and actually, let's go ahead and look at the ISE. Okay, yeah, no, let me just go ahead and finish this and then we'll start working with that. So we have Gedit that pretty much does the same thing. Vim, they actually use the term substitution instead of replace. And again, it's powerful, but just complicated to use. But, you know, it just takes time to get used to something that's new. And again, about the case sensitive thing, when you're using Linux or anything Linux-like, be sure to do case sensitive, spaces matter. But even in, you know, Windows and Gedit, spaces, characters, you know, is it the / or the /? Make sure you type the right character. Okay, so here are all the assignment summaries. I haven't added any videos, but I soon hope to do that, so it'll be easier for you. But also remember, just like last time, I wasn't able to put the videos in for Linux on the activities page, but it's still available under the Zoom link. And let me just show you because I want to. Under the Zoom link, you go into Cloud Recordings, and if you notice last class, there's 25 files. So you click there, and you can notice there's audio only, and then there's the actual recording, there's chat files, stuff like that. So you just have to click each one of them and see which one you want to watch. Okay. But they are there. Oh, and fortunately, at the beginning of each video, it has which activity it's about. So let me just show you real quick. Okay, so we're in Zoom, cloud recording, 25 files. If we click on this one here and hit play, you see that this one's going to be about 8:10. So it's pretty easy to find out which one's which through here. All right. So there's the assignment summaries. Next, of course, we have your errors. And then next we have what I gave you as Windows commands. Let me go ahead and just close many of these. And let me go into the modules real quick. And let me expand these bags so it doesn't freak out anybody. Okay, we're on week 10 and we've gone through all of these items. So now I'm here at the Windows commands. I just made this active so you can see, so you actually have a copy or a reference back to what I'm doing on these activities. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and break this tab off. There's a wonderful keyboard. I'll leave it in case we need it. Okay. See if I can get a little bit bigger on this. And I cannot. There we go. Okay, so here is the PowerShell, but I am going to close it to make sure that you know how to bring it up again. So remember, it's PowerShell ISE, which is what we're using, not just